Hello friends, I hope you all are doing well and staying safe at your own place. I, CA Pujin Kapadia, welcome you all on my today's lecture on the subject Advanced Accounting and Auditing, Paper 5. As you all are aware, we had started with the topic of classification of audits, under which we had seen various types of audit classified from the various viewpoints. First was on the basis of the forms of organization or from the legal viewpoint, under which we had seen two categories. First was under which the audit was compulsory under the law. We are having several types of audit which are being displayed on your slide. Second was voluntary one, under which it was not compulsory under any law to get your books of accounts audited. Next was on the basis of time, that is when the audit is conducted, under which we had studied two broad types of audit. First was interim audit, under which I had explained you when an audit is being conducted between two periodical audits for any interim purpose. As I have told you, maybe to declare interim dividend or to present your financial statements to some authority, etc. And second was annual audit or the final audit, under which we have seen when the audit begins after the end of financial year, completed in a continuous sitting and conducted only once in a year. And such kind of audit is known as annual audit. Fine. Next, we had seen on the viewpoint of continuity, under which the first type was continuous audit, under which I had explained you when the auditor or his staff is being continuously engaged with the auditing work of the client. Secondly, we have seen complete audit. That is when we are looking at examining each and every transaction the enterprise has entered into during the entire year. Then such kind of audit is known as complete audit. Practically, it is not feasible to conduct a complete audit, but when the books of accounts are being audited for the very first time, it is advisable to go for the complete audit. Next, we have seen was partial audit, under which not all the books of accounts are being audited, but only some selected records, books or accounts are taken care of at the time of audit. So generally, in case of an individual business or a partnership business, when the owner or the partner suspect any kind of frauds, then under that particular case, they can order partial audit. And the last one, important from the viewpoint of 2 marks question also, auditing in depth, under which I had explained you what is it. It is examination in detail from the origin to the completion, that is from inception to conclusion, each and every transaction which we term as audit trail, जहां से start हुआ था वहां जहां तक खत्म होता है, each and every record is being duly taken care of, each and every transaction is being examined in detail with all the records which have been created during this phase, and to check the appropriate authorization, whether the transaction was being approved with the right authority or not. When we are seeing everything in detail, it is known as auditing in depth. I hope you are clear with this part also. Next was from the viewpoint of scope, under which we had studied three types. First was internal audit, that is when the auditor is being appointed by the management, fine, board of directors. Why? To conduct the audit of the day-to-day transactions that are being entered into by the business. And such kind of audit is known as internal audit. So basically, the status of internal auditor is as of the employee of that particular firm. Second is external audit. When audit is supposed to be required to be conducted compulsorily under any law, then shareholders are the one who are going to appoint the external auditor, which we say as a statutory audit. Fine. So the scope of that auditor, like what are his power, what are the activities he is supposed to do, are being defined under that particular law. So he gets his power, the scope of activities from that particular law. So for example, an auditor is appointed under Companies Act 2013, he get all the powers, he get all the activities which are supposed to be performed from the Companies Act 2013. And the last was branch audit, under which we had covered the section under which the branch audit is being conducted, what are the powers of the branch auditor, who appoints the branch auditor, to whom the branch audit report is being submitted, and finally when the branch audit is compulsory. So this is what we had studied. And in the last lecture, I had taken care of the first audit from the viewpoint of specialty, which is cost audit, under which broadly we had laid down focus on only two important points. First was verifying the correctness of the cost accounts, to see that all my cost accounts are being maintained in a correct manner, accurate manner or not. When I am talking about cost accounts, it relates to each and everything related to costing. It may be recording transactions with regard to purchase, sales, purchase return, sales return, stock, consumption, etc. It includes everything with respect to material costing, labor costing, standard costing, overhead costing, work in progress, closing stock, everything. valuation, that is being from the viewpoint of amount and from the viewpoint of quantity. So basically, as a cost auditor, I am verifying each and everything that whether it is recorded and maintained in a correct way or not. And second, what I am checking is adherence to the accounting plan. That is to verify that whether I am complying to the plan that I have laid down with respect to cost audit. Then we have taken care of the objectives of cost audit, scope, that is what all activities are supposed to be performed under cost audit, advantages of cost audit. And lastly, we had seen the legal provisions with respect to cost audit, under which I have told you that it is being governed under section 233B of the Companies Act. Who can be the cost auditor? So cost and management accountant under this act. If not, then a chartered accountant with 10 years of experience in practice. Who appoints cost auditor? Board of directors with the previous approval of central government. Power is the same as it is being held by the auditor. Report is being submitted to central government and only a copy is being forwarded to the shareholders. What are the basic matters which are supposed to be included in your cost audit report? Obtaining proper information and explanations, maintaining proper cost accounting records, and to see true and fair view of the cost of production, processing, manufacturing, and mining activities. With this, I guess you are clear with what we have covered till now in this particular chapter. Now we are going to start with the next topic, the name of which is management audit, popularly known as efficiency audit. Now, before starting this, let me tell you, as of now, we were talking about the data, basically the financial data or the cost accounting data. But now I want to look at the process, that is how efficiently the persons in the organizational structure are performing their duties, how efficiently management is discharging his duties. So basically, I am basically going to audit the conduct, the way with which they are performing their duties. This is basically the outline of the management audit. Now let's take the look at the definition. It's a bigger one, but we need to learn it. So I have highlighted some important points which will help us out to learn this particular definition. Definition reads as management auditing is a method to evaluate the efficiency of management at all the levels. So the first point is what I am doing is I am evaluating what the efficiency of management at all the levels. So basically throughout the organization, I want to see how effectively, how efficiently my management is working, whether at top level, middle level or bottom level. So first is evaluating the efficiency of the management at all the levels of management. Or more specifically, it comprises the investigation. What is investigation? Going into detail. Fine. Investigation of a business by an independent body from the highest executive level to downwards in order to ascertain whether sound management prevails throughout and to report as to its efficiency or otherwise. A big definition, friends. Let's cut it short into two parts. Broadly, what I'm doing, I'm evaluating the efficiency. Efficiency is basically how effectively the work is being performed by the members of the management. That is, suppose I am supposed to manufacture 1 unit in 1 hour. Now, if I'm manufacturing the same unit in less than 1 hour, then I can say I'm doing my work efficiently. Similarly, if I was supposed to take a decision in a day, and suppose I am taking more than one decision in a day, so I can say in a better manner, then I can say I'm doing my work more efficiently. So basically what I'm doing, I'm evaluating the efficiency of the management at all the levels of management. But if I want to go in a microscopic view, that is, I want to see in detail specifically what I'm doing, I am doing investigation. That is, I am going through each and everything in detail. What is my purpose? From the highest executive level to downwards. It is from the CEO of that business. That is the topmost person in that particular organizational structure. From there, I am going down to the middle level management. That is all the officers, purchase manager, sales manager, marketing manager, etc. And then I'm further coming down to the workers level. Fine, workers, supervisors, etc. So basically from the highest executive level to downwards, what I want to ascertain, whether sound management prevails. What is sound management? Basically that all the things are being done in an effective manner. There is no loophole in the entire procedure. So what I want to check is the efficiency of the management. So as I have told you in the introductory part in this answer,
Till now we were dealing with the data, fine, whether my financial data, my accounting transactions are being accurate or not, whether balance sheet and profit and loss account are showing true and fair view or not. But now what I'm checking, I'm checking the efficiency with which the work is being performed. I hope you are clear with this. So management audit is basically not talking about data upfrontly. It is looking into the way how the business is being managed, and I am examining the evaluating the efficiency of my management. So this was the definition. Let's look quickly at the purposes, like what is the objective of management audit. Under this, the first part is to identify the objectives of the business. So by doing this, what I'm doing, I'm firstly identifying my business objectives, like why I'm doing business, what I want to achieve by doing this particular business, because this is something that a focus of management is going to be on. Because if I want to evaluate the management efficiency, I need to be clear first what my business wants to achieve, and then I can compare whether my management is working on that direction only or not. Second point is splitting of the objectives into department-wise targets and plans. What I want to do is I am breaking down the entire business objective into department-wise objective. So now what I will do is I will compare the business middle level management businesses with that departmental targets. Like for example, marketing department was supposed to do marketing in such a way that there can be a sales of 1,000 units. So this was my target. Fine. And now I'm going to compare that actual performance, whether they were successful in doing so or not. Third is assessment of organizational structure and fixing responsibility centers. This is again one of the important point. Firstly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to assess the organizational structure, like what is the structure of the organization, who has the proper authority, who is accountable to whom, whether I'm accountable to only one supervisor or there are more than one supervisor to whom I am accountable. So in short, I'm going to study in detail and assessing the entire organizational structure. And along with it, what I'm doing, I'm fixing the responsibility centers. That is, I'm fixing it out that who is going to be responsible for this particular division or for this particular task or activity. So in any of the case, if anything wrong happens in that particular transaction in that particular department, I'm going to hold that particular person responsible for the same. By doing this, what is possible is every person will be determined that they are having responsibility for that particular task, and they would try their level best to do their task in the optimum manner. Next point is performance measurement of each responsibility center. As I have told you what I'm going to do now, I'm going to measure and evaluate the performance. For example, as I have told you about that marketing department was given a target to bring sales of 1,000 units. Whether they have brought that sales or whether it was less or it was more, we are going to evaluate their performance, measure their performance, and take the necessary steps so that it can be improved. And last is suggesting the realistic course of action. As I have told you, how can I achieve that particular target is supposed to be suggested by me. So friends, broadly speaking, management audit is not concerned with regard to true and fairness of anything, but it is more focusing upon making your management practices more sound, checking and looking into detail the efficiency with which the business activities are being performed. If they are going good, it is very good, but if not, then your loopholes are going to be identified by this particular kind of audit. They are going to give you the suggestions by setting up the responsibility centers, and they are going to advise you, suggest you the realistic course of action. So I hope by now you are clear with what is management audit, and secondly, what are the purpose of management audit. Third is utility, where I can take benefit of doing this management audit. So first point is it is going to help the government while taking over sick units. I hope you are knowing what is sick units. When any government unit is continuously undergoing losses, fine, it is not earning any kind of profit, it is undergoing losses only. Then what government do is, now they know that this business is not going properly, so government would like to take over that business and merge it with any of this good profit earning firm, so that the management will change and maybe the business performance of that sick unit can be improved. So basically what I want to do is, before taking this decision of taking over the sick unit, I may order a management audit, so that I will come to know about the loopholes with which the business activities were being conducted, how efficient the management in that particular business unit is, so that I can realign all those business practices with my existing one and take the corrective course of actions. So it is going to be useful to the government at the time of taking over the sick units. Sick units are the units which are undergoing losses. Second is, it is helpful to bank when before granting high ticket size loan or investing in equity. Now this is the case. We know that banks are well known for giving loans and advances. Now if we are giving small retail loans, then it is not much of the concern of the bank. But when the bank is being lending at a high ticket size, that is, for example, I am going to give the loan of 5 crore rupees, 10 crore rupees to an individual or to a company, then before granting that particular loan, I need to look into detail about the management. That is, I'm not only going to give finance on the basis of financial statements. I know as a banker, I'm going to take a look like what is the profitability, what is the financial position of that particular business. But over and about that, I'm also going to look in detail like how the management is being operating, how effectively the management is performing the task, how well they are obtaining their objectives. Because no matter how good your profitability is or how strong your financial position is, but if the person who is sitting at the top is weaker, he is not able to effectively do all the tasks, then it is not possible that you can retain your financials as it is as of now. So as a result of this management audit is going to be helpful, so that it is going to advise bank whether they should go for high ticket size loans or not. Next is, it helps foreign collaborations to ensure safety of their investment. Now, for example, any foreign company wants to invest in my Indian company. Now, foreign company is having a target that we are ready to invest this much amount in India. But which is the right management to invest in? Because they are just giving the funds. Entire management is supposed to be done by the Indian business person. As a result of which, before investing their money, they would try and look into detail the efficiency with which the management conducts its operation. As a result of which, again, management audit helps the foreign collaborators, foreign investors to do a great analysis and then invest their funds safely. And the last is, it helps the public sector units, that is result oriented over procedure bound. Generally, we see when we talk about the public sector units, fine, in that particular case, they just exist to do the task they are supposed to do. They never focus on the result. See, I am not pinpointing anyone out of here, but generally, when we talk about any public sector units, we say that they are not providing services up to the mark. They do what they are supposed to do, but they never try to improve their processes. Now, in this particular case, if the management audit is done of that particular public sector units, then they will get an idea where they are lacking, and that particular processes that they are serving, they are doing value addition to the customers, that processes may be improved and they may be driven from the procedure bound to the result oriented functions. As a result of which, they can serve in a much more better manner than what they are serving as of now. In short, this management audit is going to be helpful to all these different stakeholders. It may be government, it may be banks, it may be foreign collaborators or investors, or it may be public sector units. Friends, this is what we are going to study in this particular semester. Again, we are going to study this topic in detail in the next semester, where we are going to study different types of management audit, different tools of management audit. So for now, I would just like to request you to quickly go through the definition, purpose of management audit in a minute, and then we will going to proceed with the next topic.
Well, friends, I hope you are clear with the topic of management audit, under which we had basically focused on evaluating the efficiency of management at all the levels of management. That is verifying and checking in detail whether how the activities of management that is being performed at top level, middle level, and bottom level, whether they are doing their activities in a way they are supposed to do or they are lacking somewhere, can be easily identified by doing management audit. So for this semester, you need to remember management audit is also termed as efficiency audit. I'm telling you, efficiency audit is just a part of management audit. But for now, you are just supposed to remember that even a question comes up to you, as in what is efficiency audit, you are going to write the same answer. Fine. We are going to start with the third topic. The name of this audit is propriety audit. Before I explain anything, I would just like you to first read the definition out so that you will be more clear with the important words in this definition. What is the name? Propriety audit. Propriety audit refers to an audit in which the various actions and decisions are examined to find out whether they are in public interest and whether they meet the standards of conduct. Friends, there are two important words that I have highlighted over here. So what I'm telling over here is I'm checking out, that is, whether all my actions and decisions, that is whatsoever I'm doing in my business, the actions I'm taking or the decisions I'm making, I'm examining the same to check that whether they are in public interest, that is there any selfish motive behind the same, or I'm doing in a public good, that is in the interest of the public, and whether they meet the standards of conduct, which means if actually it was supposed to do in a good manner, whether it has been done with a right manner or whether there is any wrong intention behind the same. So when I'm going to talk about propriety audit, I'm basically going to talk about doing things in a correct manner, in a right manner, in a public interest, and in accordance with the standards of conduct. While undertaking a propriety audit, the auditor does not merely evaluate the evidence supporting a transaction. Generally, what we do, we check the transaction, and to examining the transaction, we are checking the supporting evidence. If the evidence is sufficient and appropriate, I will say the transaction is recorded and done correctly. But here, I am going a step ahead than just checking and evaluating only the evidence. What I am doing additionally, auditor attempts to examine the regularity, prudence, and impact of various actions and decisions of the authorities. So what we are doing over here, over and above just evaluating the evidence, we are checking three more things. First is regularity, that whether that thing is being done regularly on a continuous basis. Second is prudence. Now, prudence is one of the most important concepts that you need to understand. Whatsoever expenses I am incurring, I need to see if this would be my own money, whether I would have done the same expenses or not. Fine. A simple example. If I am given 100 rupees by someone else and he says, you can spend whatsoever you want and you can return me the remaining. Now, if it is someone else's money, I would go happily spend that 100 rupees and going to save zero. But if this 100 rupees would be of my own hard earned money, then I would think twice. I would spend a little as it was needed and would save the remaining. Now, this is a general difference, a practical thing that happens in our day-to-day life. That khud ka paisa hai, we are going to think it twice and used to spend it judiciously. But if it is someone else's money, then we are going to spend it expeditiously. We are not going to think much on saving this thing. The same thing is over here. Prudence means you are going to do each and every transaction considering that it is your own. Fine. The second point is prudence. And the third is impact of various actions and decisions of the authorities. That is evaluating whatsoever actions I am doing, whatsoever decisions I am taking, how it is going to impact all the stakeholders. So this is all about propriety audit. So propriety audit is basically concerned with the audit of the government bodies on a broader sense. So whenever I'm talking about the government companies or some authorities, fine, which are the government or semi-government authorities, at that time the question of proprietary audit comes in, under which we check the regularity, prudence, and its impact. Let's see to the objects of government audit or propriety audit so that we'll be more clearer. The first object is duly authorized provision of fund for expenditure. Whenever we are making provision for funds for any expenditure, it should be properly authorized. So first thing is checking whether the proper authority is there to make a particular provision or not. Let's give me a simple example. Whenever we are talking about our debtors, we know there are the chances of doubtful debts also. So we prepare bad debt reserve. Now,
Any accountant can keep this percentage of bad debt reserve to 3%, 5%, depending on his knowledge and understanding. But here, in case of government audit, I need to check as a proprietary auditor that whether this provision of fund is duly authorized or not. This is my first point. Second is proper sanctioning by authorized person to incur expenditure. Generally, if it is our own business, then we expend the amount that we want as per the need. But in case of government audit, since the money is not of that particular person, it belongs to government. As a result of which, there is a proper authority matrix. What is authority matrix? There is a limit set for each and every one. Like for example, Mr. A, who is working at a bottom level, he can incur maximum expenditure of 10,000 in a month. If he wants to incur more expenditure than 10,000, he needs to take approval from Mr. B. Now, Mr. B is having a limit of 1 lakh. अगर उससे ज़्यादा करना है तो he is going to Mr. C. In short, authority, power to incur expenditure is being fixed. So if I want to incur expenditure which is more than my limit, then I need to take approval of my senior personnel. This is my second point. At the time of incurring expenditure, whether proper sanctioning has been done or not. Third is payment made to proper person and acknowledged by the letter. This is again an important point. Whenever we talk about government contracts, if there is some person who wants to do something wrong, then what he will do is he will prepare a fake bill, do a payment in the name of fake person, and he will say that payment has been done, and he will take away that particular money, which is actually wrong. So in order to avoid this kind of thing, in proprietary audit, we are going to check that the payment is made to the appropriate person to whom it was supposed to be made, and at the same time we are going to get acknowledgement from that particular person that yes, he has received that particular amount. Next is charge or expense is being correctly classified. Is checking that whether the amount which is spent for business is being recorded for business purpose, and in case for any personal reasons, then it is recorded separately. In short, you are getting money for certain purpose, it should be recorded in that purpose only if it has been spent for that particular purpose. If you are spending it for purpose A while the money belongs to purpose B, then you cannot record into inter head. You need to record it correctly in which head it falls. Next point is regular recovery of sums and proper credit in accounts. We need to see that whether a money is being received properly from the person to whom it was receivable, because there may be a case you are doing sales to someone who is in your blood relation and you tell him that you don't give money, you give it after a long time, it is okay, which is actually wrong. So here as an auditor, I need to check if I have given him the credit of 30 days, which is being generally given in the market, I need to check that the money is being received after 30 days. So in order to avoid any kind of such situation, proprietary audit or the government audit is necessary. Next is proper valuation and periodic review of stores and stock. This is again important. Time to time, what we are supposed to do, we are going to do the valuation of the stores and stock which are being lying with us, both quantity wise as well as from the viewpoint of amount. And the last is I need to check that the expenditure that is being incurred are being following the following principles. What are the principles? First is prudent. Prudent means I am incurring any expenditure. See, I am working in a government department as of now. Now I am having a power to incur certain expenditure. Fine. Now, whenever I am incurring any expenditure, I need to see that all these 4 points are being satisfied. First, it should be done in a prudent way. Prudent way as if it is my own money. Second is I should ensure that I am not gaining anything out of this expenditure. Like कुछ भी मेरे pocket में नहीं जाना चाहिए. Fine. So there should be no personal gains. Third is not for specific group community unless any policy says so. I should not be having any intention in mind to benefit any particular community or particular group. If there is a policy regards to him, then it's okay. But I should not be partial towards one particular group. This is also to be seen. And the last point is allowance should not become source of income. Generally, what happens in government department, if you are working, now for example, I want to go for a site visit somewhere 100 kilometers far, then what government will do is they are going to pay me allowance. That is, they are going to reimburse me the expenditure. I need to see if the entire expenditure I am going to incur on that particular point is 1,000 rupees, then I should not put a bill of 2,000 or 3,000 rupees. In short, what I want to say is by claiming allowance, that is by claiming reimbursement of expenses, it should not become my income. So basically, I should claim only what I have spent. I should not claim more. So these are the general basic principles that I need to keep in mind at the time of incurring any expenditure. So I hope You are clear with what is propriety audit? Fine. That is, we need to keep in mind public interest and standards of conduct. Over and above the proofs or the evidences, I am going to look into regularity, prudence, and impact on various stakeholders. And what all are the objects of government audit are being stated on this particular slide, where I have written I need to check proper authority at the time of making provision, proper sanctioning, that limit wala example that I've told you, authority metrics at the time of incurring expenditure, payment should be made to proper person, and again we are going to acknowledgement the receipt of the payment, properly classification of charge or any expenses, regular recovery of the sums. It should not be like that since it is your relative so he can pay whenever he wants. No, whatsoever are the terms of the market, you need to be abiding the same. Next is proper valuation and periodic reviews of stores and stocks. And last is, whenever you are incurring any kind of expenditure, you need to see that you are incurring as if it is your own expenditure. You are not gaining, benefiting out of it. You are not being partial to some specific group or community. And at last, at the time of reimbursement of expenditure, you should not be making any income out of it. I hope you are clear with all the points I have stated over here. So with this, I, CA Pujan Kapadia, thank you all for your patient listening, and I hope to see you soon in my next lecture for the new topic soon. Thank you, friends.